any programming language that can be compiled for the ARM chip in the Raspberry Pi 3 can be used to program your automation and control system. We've landed on NodeRED after searching high and low for an easy to understand programming language. You may wind up having projects that are too complex for NodeRED, and you may want to move on to other programming languages. But this is a great place to start because you could have some real success pretty quickly. So we'll go over NodeRED really quick and show you how to use it. And just keep in mind, this is kind of the basis for getting started with the Raspberry Pi. It does not exclude using other programming languages. And I think you'll see what I mean as time goes on. This is a really handy tool where you could create APIs and use it as a gateway, or you could even do all of your programming right in NodeRED. So what is NodeRED? It's basically an open source project that started with IBM. IBM developed it to deal with the IoT, the Internet of Things. And it is based on nodes. That's what all these little boxes are here. They're each called a node. And on the left, you have a palette of nodes, input nodes, output nodes, function nodes, some social media nodes where you could quickly send an email or integrate with Twitter, and on and on. And of course, there are some Raspberry Pi nodes in there as well. And even a dashboard we have installed with Control Pi. And in the middle is your flow editor. This is where you create the programming that will actually run on the Raspberry Pi and do stuff. And on the right, we have some information, an info tab, a debug tab, and a dashboard tab. And this is how we could kind of arrange our dashboard, the user interface dashboard, if we decide to use the one from NodeRED. Up here, we have a deploy button. And you just click that, and then this flow will be running on the Raspberry Pi. And here on the top right, we kind of have the main menu. And we'll get deeper into all of these things. I just wanted to give you a general overview for now. So how do you get here? You open up a web browser, and you browse to the IP address of your Raspberry Pi. In this case, I'm using the host name, and then it's :1880. That's the default port that the default port that that NodeRED is running on. The NodeRED editor is port 1880. So just like when we set up the Raspberry Pi for the first time, we had to change the password, right? That's the very first thing you should do. Maybe we'll want to also put a password on this editor, because even if we change the SSH password for the Raspberry Pi, this is still unprotected. Anybody who is on the network could browse to this IP address and port name and change my code. So let's actually, they wouldn't be able to deploy it. We'll hit deploy, and they will not be able to deploy. Do you know why? Can you guess? It's because we are in read-only mode. So that is actually something to consider. Maybe you don't need a password because you would not be able to deploy this, which means they wouldn't be able to save any changes that they've made at all. But we're going to go ahead and change the password on here anyway, just so we know how to do it. And we'll cover that in the next video.